Welcome one, welcome all to Season 11, Episode 22 of the Ubuntu podcast. In this episode, we're going to discuss what awful people the Linux community are. We'll also have some type of love, and we'll go over your feedback. I'm Alan. We've got no Martin this week, but Mark is here. Hello, Mark. How are you?
It's all right. All the important people are here.
Yes, of course. And Martin gets to listen to this while he's away, having a break from the podcast, which would be nice for him. Hello, Martin. But anyway.
Good thing we're saying so many lovely things about him, isn't it?
Yes. Especially we're saying those nice things while we're recording as well. Mark, what have you been up to?
I have been finishing off my bathroom.
Oh, wow, really? We're back to bathroom chat.
Bathroom chat. Right. Bathroom update.
We need a jingle just for bathroom. We need to get Laura.
Well, this might be the last one.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
I'll have to smash my bathroom just to talk about it. Go on then, what have you done?
There was a bit more fixing of the toilet happening.
Oh, gosh.
Yes.
This is a never-ending toilet.
It is the never-ending toilet. So I think it's all fine now. There was a plumber. There were two plumbers involved. One of them did very bad stuff, and then someone else did very good stuff and explained to me why I'd done it wrong in the first place. So now I've done it all right, and it should all be okay now. But I've also been doing things like boxing in the pipework and some other bits and bobs that needed doing to make it all look nice and not look like a building site. So yeah, it's nearly there. I might not have to do anything else to my bathroom ever again.
Have you got LED lighting in the toilet?
Actually, we did have one of those at one point, but it broke down.
No.
It was just one we got off eBay, which like hooks over the edge.
Yes.
And like it detects when you walk in and lights up, which is quite fun.
Yeah, I had the same thing. I put it in there and didn't tell the kids, and then sent them up to bed. And it got dark, and they went in the bathroom, and they're like, "What the hell?"
I've got one in my kitchen tap as well. It's just like the nozzle. You sort of, there's one, you can just buy them off eBay for like a couple of quid. You screw it on, and it's got a little impeller inside which generates the electricity. So when you turn the tap on, it like has flashy lights. It's very cool. It's great. Yeah, when you have guests and you don't mention it because you're used to it, and they walk in and turn it on, they're like, "What the?" Yeah.
That's just a complete brilliant. I love that.
Yeah.
Awesome. Should we get on with it?
Let's do that.
So a little while ago, maybe a couple of weeks ago, we learned that the Rust developers, now this is Rust, the video game.
Not the programming language.
Not the programming language. You have to say that every time. Made by a company called Facepunch Studios, who are game developers of note because they've made a few games that are quite popular, including Gary's Mod. They've said they're no longer selling the Linux version of the popular survival game Rust.
Oh no, what are you going to play now?
Well, the good news is I already bought it. So
okay, so they're not like killing copies of the game that already exist.
So this is where it gets interesting. The story basically is that there was a bug which only manifested itself on certain Linux desktops. Didn't happen on Windows, didn't happen on the Mac build of Rust.
Right, so is this to do with the Unity engine not being cross-platform consistent?
Well, it's some kind of bug somewhere, and it's believed to be a bug in Unity, and it's believed to be fixed in the Unity game engine, and in a newer release, this is fixed. But the problem for the Rust developers is, in order to take advantage of that, they have to move the whole game forward to the next edition of Unity. Now, they would probably do that at some point, but this bug, would force them to upgrade. And if they upgraded, that might expose other bugs, either in Linux or indeed in the Windows or Mac builds. Because Unity, whenever you update, there's new features, bug fixes. It's kind of a rolling thing.
Okay.
And
So when we've always said, if your game's in Unity, you just push a button and you get a build out, and why isn't everyone publishing on Linux? It's actually not nearly as simple as that.
Yeah, it turns out never as simple as that. But I mean, it's just a bug, and you know, it's one of those things. But that bug's been around. Like typically, the Rust developers will wipe a server every month. So you play for a month and the server you're playing on gets wiped after a month. Yeah. And that's when the new version of Rust comes out, which may or may not incorporate new features, may or may not have new bugs, and so on and so on. Mm-hmm. And often the first Thursday of the month is when the server wipes, everyone gets a new update to Rust, and you all start playing again and you try out these new features. Well, a month or so back, the new feature that landed was a bug, and I experienced this myself. If you hold down the run forward button, it kind of repeatedly taps the key. So you jitter forward rather than run smoothly. You kind of stop, start, and the key presses Q up. So you let go of the key and it carries on jittering forward.
Yes, so I can see why that would be annoying.
Yeah, it makes the game difficult to play. I actually did play it all the way through that month with that bug, and it was frustrating. But it's a bug. But all the while that bug existed, there were lots of people giving feedback to Facepunch, telling them, hey, yo, this bug exists. And there's lots of comments on Steam and in the Steam community and on Reddit, as you'd expect, because it's a frustrating bug. Now, there is a workaround, and the workaround is use a different desktop environment. So you could install something like Fluxbox or Mate or whatever, log out, log back in again, you play Rust, and you don't have the problem. It only manifests itself under certain desktops like GNOME Shell.
Okay.
So there is a workaround. That's okay. But that's not good enough for some people, and they got quite shirty in various communities online, and it's something that seems unique to Linux users, passionate Linux users, that they feel the need to vent at developers quite aggressively.
Now, are you sure that it's unique to Linux users? Because I see, particularly around games, I see quite a lot of this where there are people who get very angry and aggressive at game developers about things like, games aren't being released when they should be released, or, they've released it, but there's particular bugs which make it not as good, or, even the content of the games, particular themes the games addresses, which they don't agree with, and people being like really appallingly horrible to people. Is that really a unique Linux thing?
I don't know. It's tricky. I mean, it's certainly an argument that it could be that it's not just Linux users, but gamers in general could be. That's possible. But it seems like the return on investment that the developer gets for putting in the time and effort to make a build for Linux, the reward for that is not a significant uptick in revenue. Yeah. Like, whenever we look at Gaming on Linux stats, that Liam has written articles in the past where he's talked about how little revenue Linux games make. And yes, we all know that Humble Bundle and the proportion of money that Humble Bundle, like, Linux users tend to give a higher value amount per sale.
Yes,
but it's a significantly smaller number of users. Right.
Yeah.
So in these articles that he's written in the past, developers that he's interviewed have said, yeah, we'll do it because for the most part it is just pressing a button and pushing a build out to Steam. Yeah. But they don't necessarily trigger a worthwhile investment from buy-in from Linux users. It's not like there's a sudden flood of Linux users and that outweighs the cost of actually pushing the button and testing it and putting it and supporting it. And I think that's the big problem, is that Linux users have this entitlement that, or this feeling of entitlement that they feel that you should make a build for Linux, and never mind the fact that it costs you money to do it. And never mind the fact that there aren't enough Linux users out there to buy it that will tip the scales to make it worthwhile doing. You should do it anyway. And if you don't do it, you're a terrible person. That's the problem. And yes, I agree with you that there are Windows gamers, and probably there's a Mac gamer somewhere who argue about performance of games and, the content of games and so on and so on. But there's something unique about the people who run Linux. They aren't generating enough revenue. And so it's this, the problem is exacerbated because it's a small number of people who are shouting louder than everyone else.
Right. So it's a, an angry group of people who are also never going to be listened to.
Right. And most developers who port their games to Linux are doing it not because they really need to,
Yeah.
not because they really want to, but because there's a small vocal number of people who ask for it.
Yeah.
Like I've replied to developers who've posted a tweet saying, my new game's out soon. I've replied to them and say, oh, will there be a Linux build? And they'll say, yeah, maybe. It's not, you don't have to ask if there will be a Windows build of someone's game.
Yeah.
That's like a stupid question because 90+% of people are running Windows. So why would you not? If you want people to play your game, you will make a Windows build. But you often have to actively ask for a Linux build.
Yes.
And you're asking for time from that developer.
Yeah.
So going back to the original story, the Rust, it's no longer being sold for Linux at the moment. And they then clarified this with, the fact that it takes additional QA and, the problems with revving the version of Unity. And I just wondered if there was something we could do that was helpful and more positive than just ranting at people when they don't. Is there something we could do, or is this just a lost cause and these people are just who they are and there's no way you can rein them in?
Well, maybe, a couple of things kind of spring to mind out of this conversation. Part of it is, offering rather than getting angry is offering to be helpful. If they're going to do a new build, we'll beta test it for them, or whatever it is that would be helpful from that point of view. Maybe we can just generally offer to, if we want it on our platform, maybe we have to do some of the legwork to get it there. But also, is there a role for us as, good citizens of the community to just try and outweigh the negative voices? It's kind of hard because, I don't play Rust. I don't generally interact with other gamers online because that's not how I enjoy gaming. I just download a game and play it by myself and screw everyone else. But is there a role for us as people who want this to be more of a thing to try and put in a louder positive voice than there is the negative voice in these discussions?
Yeah, and I certainly see that in some of the Discord communities where the subject has come up. There's certainly people who will argue against it. But it's, trying to argue with those people after they've sent a tweet to the game developer to tell them what terrible people they are, or sending them emails to tell them what terrible people they are.
I'm not necessarily saying, find the people who are negative and argue with them. What I'm saying is, talk to the developers and try and give the developers, try and outweigh what they're hearing about Linux users. Oh, there was that angry guy who sent me that thing, but then I had all of these lovely emails. We get hate mail very occasionally, but it doesn't bother us because we get so many lovely messages from people every single week telling us how much they enjoy the show.
Right. And that's great, but we're not being paid to do this. And
this is very true.
The developer who's making a game is making it generally in order to put food on the table.
Yeah.
And sending them messages of support doesn't put food on their table.
No.
What puts food on their table is people buying the game.
Yes.
And it's all very well us, liking and favoriting their tweets, retweeting them and sending them emails and saying, I really enjoyed that game. I'm sad that it's not on Linux, but hey ho, I understand, good luck with future endeavors, etc., etc. That, I don't know, will that help? If you were a developer and you got that from someone, would that sway you in amongst all the negativity you get from lunatics on the internet?
It's a good question.
Or would it be better if I, bought 10 packs of the game, 10 Steam keys and gave them away to my friends?
Well, there's actually doing that, but there's also the perception around it. So I think there needs to be a visible positivity to Linux gamers as a community. Just saying, oh yeah, we bought some. If all they hear is they see people buying stuff and then people being negative about the games, then it's still a small market segment. So there's still, that's not going to.
It's still like one guy.
Yeah.
It's like two cats fighting in a bag. There's more things outside the bag than inside the bag. But these two people, positive and negative, messages to the guy to the developer isn't going to amount to a whole hill of beans when there's potentially thousands of people who are on Windows and are arguably more important because they're a larger market segment. It's just normal business practice that you you focus your attention on where the large market segment is, and that's going to be on Windows, and it's going to be on, Steam or consoles or itch.io or wherever it is. That large community of people who are actually putting money in your pocket and putting food on the table. It's natural you're going to focus your attention there, and it's normal for a developer to turn away from that negativity. And one way of turning away from that negativity is don't provide Linux builds of your game, and then you can ignore the haters. It's a horrible position to be in.
Yes.
And I think one of the realizations that many Linux users don't get is that we are a tiny proportion of the market. It doesn't matter how much you look at like Humble Bundle figures and however many of the games there are on Steam, and the fact is that we are a small segment of the market, and we need to appreciate that. And when we give our feedback, I'm not saying we need to suck it up, but we do need to be somewhat grateful for the stuff we do get.
Yeah. Well, if any of our listeners have ideas as to how we can make gaming better on Linux and how we can make the gaming community friendlier on Linux, or if you're a developer and you want to let us know what you'd like to see from gamers on Linux, do get in touch and let us know.
If you love the command line as much as we do, send us a command that will blow our minds, and we might even mention it on the show. Send your command line love to show@ubuntupodcast.org.
So we've got a command line love here, which I have never heard of. We got it sent to us by regular listener and show contributor Nadramastor, and it's called Maybe.
Yes, this is quite clever. I like this.
I've heard of true, false, yes and no, but what is maybe?
So maybe is, say you've downloaded a shell script which someone recommended you run on Stack Overflow or something like that, and you're not sure that you trust what it's going to do. So instead of just running it in the shell, you type maybe and then the name of the script. And what this does is it doesn't actually do what's in the script. It captures all of the system calls and then prints them out. So it shows you if it's going to do something like create a directory or move a file or change permissions. And then it just gives you a listing of all the things it would have done if you'd actually run it. And then you can say, maybe I would like it to do that. Maybe I wouldn't like it to do that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Does it work? I mean, I can imagine some scripts are quite complicated and take certain paths depending upon outcomes of things that the script does. So.
Yes. Well, it uses ptrace, which I think it intercepts all the system calls. So wherever the program would have made a system call, it intercepts that and just says what it would have done.
Huh.
So it's not like I don't think it's like a static analysis of a script to try and work out what it's going to do. It actually sort of executes it, but without executing the system calls.
That's pretty funky. It never ceases to amaze me what weird and wacky command line love people send into us. I'm going to have to try this one out. I've got some wacky scripts that I've downloaded from the internet, and I certainly would like to. I mean, I've already run them, but I would certainly love to run them through maybe and see what the output is. That's fantastic. Thank you for that. And we love hearing your command line loves, because I learn something every single time.
There's always room for more feedback. On our website, each episode has its own comments, so post yours on ubuntupodcast.org.
And now it is time for some of that glorious feedback. First up, Joe emailed us, show@ubuntupodcast.org.
Hey guys, I found a launcher for Android called TUI that makes your phone look and act like a bash terminal. It's very customizable and has a lot of bash features. Commands like cat, top, ls, rss all work natively. I put it on an old phone to test it and fell in love. It would be great if the developer made it into a window manager for Linux. It also has a GitHub page. I guess
I've looked at the screenshots and it just looks like someone's running a terminal on. So, rather than click on things, you actually type.
You type the name of the app that you want to run.
Brilliant. So you type Spotify if you wanted to launch Spotify, and it would run it like it was a command, right?
Wow, brilliant. But yeah, there is kind of a window manager for Linux like this. You just press Control or F1 and You've got it.
Brilliant. Diddledan sent us some gaming love.
It looks like a really awesome commercial game called Star Ruler Tool has been open sourced. This is a 4X real-time strategy based in space. And the source code is available at GitHub, and I believe that Diddledan has also made a snap of this.
Yes.
So you can snap install Star Ruler 2.
Excellent.
I've played a bit of the tutorial of this. It's quite a cool game. It's like have you ever played Galactic Civilizations?
No.
Have you ever played Civilization?
Yes, a lot.
Okay, so Galactic Civilizations is civilizations in space. And this is a bit like that, except instead of being turn-based like Civilization, it's real-time. So you're flying around colonizing planets with different resources, and then you level up planets by exporting the resources from one planet to another, and then that lets it get more technology and more population. And yeah, it's quite cool. I like it.
Nice. Stan left a comment on our website, ubuntupodcast.org.
How do I get to Ryan's pages? I can't get the address right. Did we have a link in the show notes to Ryan's destination Linux and so on?
We should have done. We will correct that.
Okay.
And get those links put in the show notes for the episodes in which Ryan was a guest presenter. Sorry, Ryan, and sorry, Stan. We must have missed that link. Ian Forbes also left us a comment.
I'm afraid I must pull up Mr. Popey on a point. I appreciate the planet is going to hell in a handbasket, but there is still no excuse to use the phrase reach out instead of contact or call. As the saying goes, unless you are the four tops, stop doing that immediately. I'm not familiar with that saying, but I fully agree with the sentiment.
Which saying are you not familiar with?
Unless you are the four tops.
Oh, it's a popular beat combo. This is a popular beat combo from the past who had a song called Reach Out.
Oh, I see.
Reach out. Yeah. No, Alan, don't sing. Yeah, thank you for that. It's a byproduct of me hanging around with Americans a lot. I tend to use a lot of silly phrases, and I really should stop. So I appreciate, Ian, you contacting me and raising my awareness of the fact that I use that silly phrase. I will endeavour not to use it again, and will use contact or call. And if you hear me saying anything like that again, do feel free to let me know again.
Brilliant. Thanks for reaching out, Ian.
Darren O'Connell emailed us.
Just wanted to share my experience with Linux. I grew up with Linux and have always used it. My first distro was Knoppix at 5 years old, followed shortly by dual booting Fedora Windows and Windows Ubuntu by 9. Crumbs. Since then, I've been using mostly Linux and don't remember a time when I didn't use Linux. I only use Windows for certain games that don't work on Linux, like Rainbow Six Siege. Wow.
That's awesome.
Yes.
I like the whole idea of using Knoppix at 5 years old. 5 years old, I was bashing pieces of wood together and like hoops and sticks and stuff. God, the idea of having a bootable live environment. God, you kids today. I don't know. It was all fields around here. Cakestar left a comment on our YouTube channel.
I remember stumbling across Ryan's videos when he was just starting his 30 Days of Linux series. I had been looking into the transition to Linux full-time for a bit. It was really encouraging to see someone moving to Linux who was also into the same aspects of computing as I was. I switched 2 years ago and haven't looked back.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, Ryan said he gets a lot of feedback from people who've watched his videos and have gone on the same kind of journey that he has. I think it was a good idea to get him on. We should get him on again. He's a good chap. I think that's all of the feedback. Golly gosh, wow, that's it for episode 22. Every time I say these numbers, they're getting bigger and bigger. So what is going on?
That's what happens.
I know. It's magic, isn't it?
Yeah.
So we'll be back next week with more news and...
will we be at Odd Camp? Goodness,
crikey.
Not quite. That's coming up soon, though.
Yeah. Oh, golly gosh, wow. We're not recording at Odd Camp, are we?
I don't know. We might record something at Odd Camp.
We might. Send us an email and let us know if we should. See you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye. non-stop.